there are so many men and women, both in the African American community, who no longer look at each other and see beauty and see leadership and see family, see community. We can look at many of the black female celebrities now who, after years of dating black men, end up marrying either a white guy or a Persian guy, or they'll say an Arab sheik or billionaire or something like that. It's just this concept of us not being able to find value and validation within ourselves. And to discuss the psychology behind that, we have the Prince of Pan Africanism himself, Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Johnson, how are you?
Good afternoon, my brother. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for calling in. I know you've been on a whirlwind media tour. I'm just always glad we can drop by and just drop some knowledge off with us. So with that, on this topic of self-hate in the black community, I will cede the floor to you.
Yes, sir. One of the things that we have to be very, very clear about, post-traumatic slavery disease, like any other mental illness, gets worse over time when it is not addressed. So, for example, if you're an alcoholic, if you suffer from depression, low self-esteem, suicidality, schizophrenia, irregardless of the illness, it gets worse if it is untreated. With that being said, let's look at the fact that slavery ended physically in 1865. So now we're in 2017, 153 years after the close of the Ma'afa. In summer of 2019, less than 2 years from today, we will be celebrating our 400th anniversary, dating from when the first Africans were dropped off in Jamestown, Virginia, August 21st, 1619, to begin several generations of forced servitude. So with that being said, I would argue that the psyche of the American Negro today is worse than it was during civil rights. It is worse than it was during Jim Crow. It is worse than it was during Reconstruction, and it was worse than it was during slavery. Let us be clear about something. The first 200 years of our existence in America, we still identified as African. That's why you have the African Methodist Church, the African Free School, the African self-help organizations, the African newspapers. We knew who we were, and we tried to protect it. But around the 1800s, the turn of the 19th century, black leadership felt that we should disidentify from our Africanity as a way of trying to be amalgamated into the American social hierarchy. It did not work. And that's one of the reasons we've been dealing with all these different labels: black, Negro, Afro-American, African-American, Anglo-African. We done went through about 20 names. And the whole purpose of these names is to try to find a name that white people will accept with the hope that they will accept us. With that being said, two big symptoms of this self-hate. I'll give you two. One is light skin supremacy, which you just touched on, and another is the HNIC syndrome. Let's deal with the light skin supremacy first. One of the worst aspects of slavery was that it introduced not only a myriad of different colors. There's nothing wrong with diversity. The problem isn't that some of us are blue, black, purple, and some of us are light bright, some of us are yellow, some of us are butter pecan, butter almond, caramel. We have every different color. That's not the problem. It's the fact that a value was assigned. It's the fact that a value was assigned to the worth of your life based on your pigmentation. That was the problem. And when the white man introduced that light skin supremacy into African people, we have not put it down yet. And as someone who works in the schools, I can tell you that light skin supremacy is very much alive in our community. I've had black, beautiful children brought to me, blue, black, purple sisters, the original color that God made man when he put us on this planet. I mean, gorgeous, who hate themselves because they're constantly being picked on. You're too black. Your hair is too knotty. Your nose is too broad. Now, here's the question. Who did they learn that from? Who did a 4-year-old black girl learn from? Who taught her that black skin was ugly? Who taught her black hair was ugly? She didn't learn it in school. She learned it at home. The black parent is responsible for transmitting intergenerationally the hatred that was originally taught to us by our enslavers. The only reason why still suffer. Self-hate today is because every new generation of African children brought into this world is socialized, indoctrinated by their parents to carry on the hate.
And we see this throughout the popular culture now, where you see someone like Little Kim, who was just a fine, beautiful, dark-skinned sister, and now she's bleached and mutilated herself into looking like an Asian woman.
Was absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
Little Kim was absolutely beautiful. She didn't need to do that. But when you dig into our sister's history, though, you find out that she had a very traumatic, traumatizing relationship with her biological father, with whom she used to live for a portion of her life when her parents split. And I believe, and I don't know, I'm only speculating because I wasn't in that home, but just based on my experience as a psychotherapist of children, I believe that her father damaged her self-image to the point that although she was beautiful to you and I, she never felt adequate in her own skin. Remember, the subconscious is not the victim of truth. Subconscious is the slave to repetition. What did Adolf Hitler say? Make up a lie, keep it simple, and keep repeating it. If you do that, you will be able to control anybody you want to control, because Adolf Hitler understood from his minister of propaganda, who was a psychologist, Joseph Goebbels, that the human mind is particularly susceptible to repetition. So if little Kim is growing up in a home where her father is constantly telling her she's no good, constantly criticizing and ridiculing her, which definitely did happen because she ran away from home, she left, then she's automatically been conditioned to believe she's less than. And I believe her relationship with her father had a lot to do with the surgeries that she had late in life. Now, go ahead.
We got to go to a break. Can you stick with me for one more segment, because I want to get to some solutions that we can teach people.
No problem.
All right, after break, we're going to keep talking to Dr. Umar Johnson about solutions we can teach our young black boys in particular, young black women also, to reestablish this view of beauty and love for themselves. We will be back after the break. Call in 448-922-2703. Prince of Pan-Africanism. And Dr. Johnson, I wanted to kind of figure out a strategy that we can use for reprogramming our young people, and they're constantly bombarded with these images of the paradigm for black women is now Kim Kardashian, who's Armenian, or that the way that a black man is supposed to act is now this media-controlled image where you're either the super violent thug who's out to kill, ravage, and destroy, or you're, on the other hand, the suited and booted Uncle Tom who's just smiling and not trying to hurt anybody's feeling. How do we change the paradigm back to the normality of black society?
Yes, sir. You just mentioned Kim Kardashian. And all due respect to our brother Kanye, and no disrespect to his wife, although I don't agree with interracial relationships at all, but in all due respect to his family, had Kim Kardashian been a black woman, respectfully, having dated multiple black celebrities in the different areas of entertainment, she would have been branded a whore. Kanye would have never married her. No other black man would have married her. I'm speaking to the double standard that we black men have about women. If she's a black woman, she's a whore if she dated more than one celebrity. But a white woman can go from black man to black man, never lose her value, and ending up marrying one of the most famous celebrities in the industry. So something has to be said about that. Now, when you say reprogram the children, the fact that we even have to reprogram is a problem in and of itself, because there should have been programming done in the first place to prevent the menticide from setting in. Keep in mind, children naturally love who they are. They naturally love who they are. All ethnic groups naturally love who they are. I just came back from China and Japan. Many people may not necessarily be attracted to the Chinese phenotype or the Japanese phenotype, but to themselves, they are beautiful. And why is that? Because every culture creates its own standard of beauty and attractiveness that is directly derived from the spiritual, psychological, cultural, and biological traits of that people. Everyone but us. The European gave us a totally different standard of beauty, which is the polar opposite of who we are. We are the polar opposites of Europeans. They're white
we're black. Our hair is nappy, here's is thin. So to have a standard of beauty that is not only imposed from the outside, but to be so far away from your own standard means that your children will always be doomed to suffer from an inferiority complex. But I would also say that all we have to do is remove the negative factors and the negative influences upon our children. But most of all, my brother, if we want to make sure that African children grow up to be loving, productive members of the community, you don't have to address them so much as their parents. Remember, you can focus on the child all day long, but if you don't address the source of the self-hate, they're being taught to worship yellow skin and white skin by their parents. I grew up in a family where the light skin supremacy was present. It wasn't as strong as I've seen it in many of my friends' homes, but on both sides of my family, my mother's side and my father's side, they practiced light skin supremacy. Were they conscious of it? I don't think so, but I could tell that myself and other darker members of the extended family, those grandchildren didn't get the same type of love and attraction. Now, after I became Dr. Umar, things changed, but I wasn't traumatized as much. I saw it, but it didn't traumatize me. You got other black children who have been absolutely traumatized by the self-hate taught within the family unit.
Mm. And so with that, we talk about the need, the way that the media has a hold on the way that people see themselves, understand themselves, identify with themselves. What can we do to break this bound that they have on our young people and on our families, where they really think that those images they see on the various screens, the TV screen, the phone screen, the computer screen, are what the reality of the situation is? How do we break through that with our own images of beauty, love, respect for ourselves?
The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, propaganda has destroyed more people than open warfare. El Hajj Malik El Shabazz Malcolm X said that the media is so powerful, it will have you loving the people you should despise and despise the people you should love. The answer to your question, we have to create our own unapologetically African information, media, and propaganda system. It must be global, it must be local, it must be national. Because the language of the unconscious, and you just said it, images and sound. I don't care how many black history books we give black children. I don't care how many trips to Africa we make with our babies. As long as they can turn on a radio and hear negative images, as long as they can turn on the television, turn on the radio and hear negative sounds, or turn on the television and see negative images, it is those images that will ultimately win out. And why is that? Because the brain is controlled by the images within it, not necessarily the information. And that's exactly why we say a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can read that Jesus was black in a million books.